Morning. It's Friday the 29th of May, the first day that we're going into phase one. We have more freedom. And I wondered if we might think for a few minutes about change and moving forward. So as we rejoice in the gift of this new day, so may the light of your presence, O God, set our hearts on fire with love for you, now and forever. From the writer of the Colossians, chapter 3, we read, "Awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give you light. You have died, and your life is hid with Christ in God. Awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead. Set your minds on the things that are above, not on the things that are on the earth, and Christ shall give you light. When Christ our life appears, you will appear with him in glory. Awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give you light." I'm sitting in my garden, and for the redheads amongst us, I'm already melting. It's 19 degrees here at Blackford Pond, and those of us who don't particularly like the sun are dreading the fact that the BBC weather forecast says it could be 25 here by mid-afternoon. So I'm sitting under a canopy, long sleeves, factor 50. You've not seen the hat today, but the hat will be on later on. And I was thinking about when I was at senior school. I spent part of senior school at that very tense time in world history when everybody was expecting world war, nuclear war, and Margaret Thatcher and the American president were very cosy and were really saber-rattling. And the response from our teachers at school was to make us read stuff and think about the very real fear of war and nuclear war and living in the aftermath of nuclear war. They made us read the Triffids and the other books like that. And one of the poems that we were made to read and really make you think about what the reality of being in a very difficult situation would be was Edwin Muir's poem, The Horses. And it absolutely terrified me at the time, but when you read it again years later, it's also a poem of hope. So let me read it. It's not a short poem, but I always thought it was set in Orkney, which is where he was from. Barely a 12-month after the 7 Days' War that put the world to sleep, late in the evening, the strange horses came. By then we'd made our covenant with silence, but in the first days it was still so still. We listened to our breathing and were afraid. On the second days the radios failed. We turned the knobs, no answer. On the third day a warship passed, heading north, dead bodies piled on the deck. On the sixth day a plane plunged over us into the sea. Thereafter, nothing. The radio's dumb, and still they stand in the corners of our kitchens, and stand perhaps turned on in a million rooms all over the world. But now if they should speak, if on a sudden they should speak again, if on the stroke of noon a voice should speak, we would not listen. We would not let it bring that old, bad world that swallowed its children quick at one great gulp. We would not have it again. Sometimes we think of the nations lying asleep, curled blindly in impenetrable sorrow, and then the thought confounds us with its strangeness. The tractors lie about our fields. At evening they look like dank sea monsters couched and waiting. We leave them where they are and then let them rust. They'll moulder away and be like other loam. We make our oxen drag our rusty ploughs, long laid aside. We have gone back far past our father's land. And then that evening, late in the summer, the strange horses came. We heard a distant tapping on the road, a deepening drumming. It stopped, went on again, and at the corner changed to hollow thunder. We saw the heads like a wild wave charging and were afraid. We had sold our horses in our father's time to buy new tractors. Now they were strange to us, as fabulous steeds set on an ancient shield or illustrations in a book of knights. We did not dare go near them, yet they waited, stubborn and shy, as if they had been sent by an old command to find our whereabouts, and that long-lost archaic companionship. In the first moment we had never a thought that they were creatures to be owned and used. Among them there was some 6 colts, dropped in some wilderness of the broken world, yet new as if they'd come from their own Eden. Since then they have pulled our ploughs and borne our loads, but that free servitude can still pierce our hearts. Our life is changed. Their coming is our beginning. Those who live through the time are afraid, but this time is not a fear. It is not a fear of silence. It's a fear of the wild wave, the noisy and vital that means something for them. And there is something of that at the moment. We have been so silent for so long, and now we are re-entering a little bit of noise. And we have things so common but so strange to us, just like those horses. Maybe it's time for us to re-embrace some of the things we have put aside for so long as we move forward into the future. And those newborn colts, that symbol of the future, the wilderness of the destroyed world, but the hope of new life, of a new beginning, of getting clearer priorities. That's something for us to think about. So as we move into phase 1, perhaps we can embrace the new and not look back too much to the old with regret, and find a new way of being. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance and give you peace. Amen.